everyone. It is Friday, January 17th. You're listening to the Mo News Podcast. I'm Moshe Manunu.
And I'm Jill Wagner. This is the place where we bring you just the facts.
And we read all the news and read between the lines so you don't have to. Jill, just a heads up to about 300 million Americans, so most of us. A deep freeze is about to begin here. Much of the country is going to see temperatures plunge this weekend, if it hasn't plunged already, from the northern Rockies down through the plains, across the nation on Sunday. By Monday, 300 million plus of us will have below average temperatures. So make sure to check your weather apps and have your winter coats ready, even in parts of the country where you typically don't wear a winter coat.
And for those of us who do wear winter coats, maybe just stay inside for a few days.
It'll be below zero in a number of states.
All right, Moshe, lots of news. Let's get to the headlines. With 48 hours to go, the TikTok ban sends Washington scrambling.
And some interesting messaging from the White House on whether they'll enforce the TikTok ban starting on Sunday.
Overseas to the Middle East, we're also just about 48 hours or so until the hostage-ceasefire deal is supposed to take effect, where things stand as of now. In California, slower winds help Los Angeles firefighters, but a look at some of the roadblocks when it comes to rebuilding.
And Jill, if they don't have enough challenges there, the mudslide concerns going forward.
It was the best of times, it was the worst of times for space launches on Thursday, as two of the world's richest men had different results with rocket launches.
Battle of the billionaires.
And sticking with space, Donald Trump says he'll release a report on New Jersey's mystery drones.
Yeah, as if we didn't have enough news coming our way next week. A drone report with what's really been happening, he claims.
And first Doge, now the Senate. Donald Trump is encouraging Vivek Ramaswamy to seek Ohio's open Senate seat.
But is it because he doesn't want him around?
And a sign of the times, women's basketball teams will finally be paid for playing in the NCAA tournament.
It comes as the ratings have continued to skyrocket in recent years.
And it is Friday. Cheers to the freaking weekend, what we are watching, reading, and eating.
Or what we might be putting on our food, for what I'm talking about.
Okay, let's start with the TikTok ban. We are less than 48 hours from when that ban is supposed to take effect, and we're learning that the Biden administration does not plan to take action that would force TikTok to immediately go dark for U.S. users on Sunday. TikTok could still proactively choose to shut itself down that day, a move intended to send a clear message to the 170 million Americans. It says use the app each month about the wide-ranging impact of the ban. Still, the Biden administration now signaling it won't enforce the law that goes into effect one day before Biden leaves office. A White House official telling ABC News, quote, "Our position on this has been clear. TikTok should continue to operate under American ownership, given the timing of when it goes into effect over a holiday weekend, a day before inauguration. It will be up to the next administration to implement." And it comes as we're still waiting for the Supreme Court to rule on the legality of the ban. There are indications that we could get a decision on the fate of the TikTok law as soon as 10 a.m. Eastern time today. So TikTok has argued that the ban violates the First Amendment. The Biden administration and a large bipartisan majority of Republicans and Democrats have called it a national security threat, given that it is owned by a Chinese company, putting U.S. data at risk. But now lawmakers on both sides of the aisle are suddenly trying to figure out how to save the app for now after voting to ban it. And then there is also incoming President Trump, who himself once issued an executive order to try to ban TikTok. That was during his first term. But now, at the very least, he wants to delay the ban. He had TikTok's CEO at Mar-a-Lago, and the CEO will also have a prominent seat at the inauguration on Monday. So, Moshe, nothing has changed in terms of the national security concerns about the app. This seems to be more about the 170 million Americans who use it, and no politician wanting to take blame for TikTok going dark.
That's right, Jill. Nothing has changed. China does not appear to be letting ByteDance sell TikTok. The law is the law as of Sunday. The Supreme Court may rule on it today. But nonetheless, basically the Biden administration admitting in its final weekend in office, final 24 hours in office, it's basically going to say, we're not going to begin enforcing it in those last few hours we're in charge. It's Trump's thing, starting at 12:01 on Monday. Everyone,
hot potato.
Take it. Like, we don't want to be blamed for it on the way out. We don't want to deal with the headache of it. Maybe they don't know how they'll enforce it at this juncture. It's literally like the last day of school, right? Like whoever is left. I mean, I know a number of people who worked in this administration and they've been leaving gradually in November, December. I'm getting the out of office replies. And so like who's ever left in those last 12 hours, like the last weekend, you think they want to be in the office, like making sure that the Google and Apple and the App Store have like stopped accepting updates, etc. I'm sure there have been people working on this and they're just like, whatever, leave it the new guy. Like, we don't want to deal with it at this point. Like, we want our weekend. And if you're a Democrat, I know a lot of Democrats are leaving Washington over the weekend because they don't want to be there for the Trump inauguration. So everyone here saying, let's wait a minute. It is still the law of the land. The Supreme Court likely to reinforce that today if they issue their decision. They can't ignore it completely. That'd be kind of a weird call by them. But they might also punt on this and saying, we're not going to, given what's about to happen and what Trump is promising in regards to TikTok, maybe we're not going to rule on it either. They'll find some sort of way to punt. So a lot of interesting developments, still to watch this weekend. Now, one thing also, what will TikTok do? I mean, TikTok's been preparing here for a preemptive shutdown. So they don't need to shut down the app. They just were going to be banned from sending updates to the App Store for the app, meaning the app would still be functional on Sunday and at least for a short time afterwards. But TikTok was trying to prove a point to 170 million Americans, like, hey, this is what the ban looks like. And so by shutting down the app completely, which is what TikTok's plan was based on the law, they were sort of trying to move the ball a little bit and lobby their own people like, hey, this is the reality without us. So Congress passed the law, bipartisan majorities. Biden signed the law. Trump was once a supporter of banning TikTok. He no longer is, likes the fact that he got a lot of movement and support from younger people on TikTok. So he's talked about how he's a fond space in his heart for TikTok. Now, ultimately here, it is the law. They're going to have to figure this out. You can't just not implement it forever. That's not a thing. It's not a good precedent to set. It does not appear that Congress is going to reverse itself on this law. I mean, clear bipartisan majorities still consider China a national security threat, and the fact that it has influence over an app that 170 million Americans use. And again, while TikTok denies it, the Chinese government has influence with all companies in China, ultimately who all report into the Chinese government. That's the way it operates there. And so the fact that the Chinese government could mess with the algorithm, could influence people, is very concerning. For folks, and that includes folks inside Trump's administration and around him, and he wants to take this hard-nosed stance towards China. So what will end up happening here? There's been talk, there's recent reports that they're considering selling part of TikTok without the algorithm to Elon Musk, of all people, to incorporate with X. Elon Musk being close to both the Chinese government and very close to Donald Trump. A lot of interesting potential solutions here to all of this based on that law. Of course, Trump has Republican majorities in Congress who may be supportive of some sort of new approach here he takes on TikTok. The one thing that his new national security advisor, that's Congressman Mike Waltz of Florida, he's going to now be Trump's national security advisor. He says we have to find a way to preserve TikTok, but also protect people's data. That's the deal that's in front of us. So they'll have to come to some sort of hybrid arrangement, who has ownership rights. And this is something TikTok's been arguing, which is there's got to be other solutions than forcing ByteDance to sell us completely. Many people thought no, and it's something we're going to watch here. But Jill, we'll see what TikTok's response is in the coming hours. But it appears you will have your TikTok on Sunday, everybody. You will have your TikTok on Monday, everybody. And then after that, it'll sort of be up to Trump to figure out, what do I do about this law on the books? I can't not be enforcing a law, but I need to find a solution here.
Okay, now to the Middle East, where there appears to be a slight delay in the ceasefire and hostage deal that we told you about yesterday. Israel's cabinet will now meet Saturday and is expected to vote and approve that ceasefire and hostage release deal. So this would potentially delay the start of the deal from Sunday to Monday, which means we could be looking at a split screen during Trump's inauguration. The vote was postponed after Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said Hamas had created a, quote, last-minute crisis, reneging on parts of the deal, and he wouldn't say what the problem was. There are reports it had to do with Israel having veto power over which prisoners get released, which was part of the initial agreement. Also at play, major pushback from some of the right-wing members in Netanyahu's party, saying that they would leave his political coalition if that deal goes through. It looks like they're backing down on that, but it's definitely something to watch if this deal makes it to stage 2. In the meantime, Israel has continued its airstrikes of Gaza ahead of the ceasefire. Hamas says 83 people were killed since the announcement of the ceasefire and hostage deal. Israel says it struck about 50 terror targets across the Gaza Strip. But as of this recording, again, Thursday evening, it looks like things are still a go. And Moshe, this hiccup and delay is the type of thing that we should probably expect over the next few weeks, even if and when the deal takes hold.
Jill, it's the Middle East. Nothing's easy. Nothing is easy there. Everything is very touch and go. All of this drama, very par for the course, very complicated deal. Nearly a year in the making here. So many parties involved. You had that delay on the Israeli side. It really is internal politics in Israel, as Netanyahu tries to ensure that if he moves ahead with it, he keeps his government, because the way coalition politics work in parliamentary systems. Notably, Trump is watching all of this. He was on the Dan Bongino podcast, a conservative podcaster, who he told, Trump said, we changed the course of it. We changed it fast. It better be done before I take the oath of office. We shook hands. We signed documents. It better be done. So Trump reinforcing to the Israelis there, it better be done by the time I take that oath at 12 p.m. on Monday. And he might get, as you noted, those split-screen images on Inauguration Day, as we saw back in 1981, as Reagan took the oath, and the American hostages from Iran were being released. Those first 3 hostages set to be released now, if the timing now aligns on Monday. A delegation of senior Israeli defense officials supposed to head to Cairo today to coordinate the process for how they release the hostages. In the last deal, if you remember this, and this was just 50 days into the war back in November of 2023, the hostages that were released then, about 100 hostages that were released through the Egyptian border from Gaza and then turned around and entered from Egypt into Israel. The Israeli officials will also be coordinating a bunch of new aid that will be coming into Gaza as part of this deal. And this is going to be a very difficult time for the Israelis, as they still haven't been told which of these hostages is alive, who's coming home each day. Some of these hostages we will be seeing come back in the coming weeks here. Will be coming back in coffins. 23 of the 33 are understood to be alive, meaning 10. Jill, I was watching a friend of the pod, Dan Senor's appearance on CNBC Friday. Dan Senor has his own podcast, the Call Me Back podcast, where he dives into issues every week, mainly related to Israel and this conflict. And he was saying, listen, this is not a great deal for Israel. They're going to have to give up to 1,000 prisoners here, many who have killed Israelis or committed other crimes in Israel. And it's going to be very difficult and cause a lot of conflict within Israeli society that, even though the Israeli government has made remarkable achievements over the course of the past year and a half, eliminating most of the Hezbollah threat to the north, eliminating most of Hamas, making Iran weaker. They have room now to work inside Syria as that government has collapsed, and ensure that no threat can get near them on that border. That still, in this case, Hamas is holding enough cards, or enough hostages in this case, to be able to make these types of demands of the Israeli government, even after everything that has happened in Gaza. But nonetheless, it is a price worth paying because, ultimately, of all the sort of larger existential achievements they've been able to make here. And also you have a country in Israel where there's precedent for this. It wasn't so long ago that for one Israeli soldier, the Israelis gave up more than 1,000 Palestinian prisoners because that is what Hamas demanded. And for Israel, it is so important to bring home every soldier. It's a citizen army. It's a small country, and the government needs to be seen as backing up its people and saying we will pay any price to bring home every Jew, every Israeli, no matter where they are in the world. Nonetheless, it is very difficult, and you see protests on both sides in Israel, those supporting this agreement, those who are saying, reminding people that among the people who was returned in that deal, the 1,000-for-1 deal for the Israeli soldier Gilad Shalit more than a decade ago, was none other than Yahya Sinwar, who was released from Israeli prison, would go on to, basically develop the plan for October 7th, lead Gaza, and lead Israel, and lead, the whole region, the whole world, into this current mess. So people in Israel saying, are we releasing the next Sinwar in exchange for these hostages? And those in Israel saying it is important, especially after 450 days, that if there are living Israelis still as hostages in Gaza, we got to do what we got to do to bring them home, and then deal with whomever they released later, that they can be rearrested, refound, killed, whatever it takes. But nonetheless, bring home whoever you can. Now, it is a struggle within that society. It's been an ongoing debate. They still haven't resolved it. They will never resolve it. And that's part of the existential crisis within that country.
Yeah, one of the main criticisms from some of the hostage families that I've been listening to about this deal is that it leaves so many of the hostages there. We're talking 2/3 of the remaining hostages will still be there after 6 weeks, and there's not a ton of confidence that they're going to get to the second phase. Also, as you mentioned, this question of the prisoners that they're releasing, there is some thinking now. Initially, they were going to release those prisoners to potentially a third country. And there is some thinking now that maybe they'll release them to the Gaza Strip or to the West Bank, because at least they can keep a better eye on some of those prisoners there, as opposed to if they're abroad.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot to watch here in the coming weeks from that part of the world, as there always is.
Time for the speed read, starting with the latest on the wildfires in California. From the LA Times, it has been 10 days since the worst wildfires in modern Southern California history broke out. Despite warnings of stronger winds this past week, firefighters have been able to make progress containing the fires. As of Thursday, the Palisades fire along the coast, 22% contained, with about 24,000 acres burned. 10 people have been confirmed dead in that fire. About 1,300 structures are destroyed, and 11 arrests have been made in connection to the fire. Now, the Eaton fire, more inland, that's been impacting Altadena and Pasadena, was 55% contained on Thursday. About 14,000 acres have been burned. 17 people are confirmed killed in that fire, with nearly 5,000 structures destroyed, and 36 arrests have been made in connection, again, to the Eaton fire. Meanwhile, tens of thousands of Los Angeles residents still under evacuation orders, anxiously awaiting word on when they can return home to whatever is left of their home. California Governor Gavin Newsom has issued an executive order to fast-track public housing for people displaced by the fires. It's also expected to streamline construction and make it easier to put trailers on properties that have been destroyed or are in the process of being rebuilt. Most part of the problem is that there is still toxic debris from the fires, which is slowing efforts and will continue to slow efforts to get the population back.
Yeah, we talked about this on the podcast earlier this week. The EPA, local public works teams are working to assess and clear hazardous materials, pesticides, batteries, fuel, other household hazardous waste from the tens of thousands of acres that were melted down here by these fires to ensure the air and soil are safe for residents to return. Think about everything in a relatively large suburb burnt up amid 100-mile-per-hour winds, so blown all over the place, and then cleaning up after that, the potential chemicals, the debris. I've heard it compared to basically ground zero, but this is if ground zero was all of Manhattan times 3. That's the area we're talking about here. So the public works director in LA County said properties have been damaged beyond belief, are full of hazardous materials. So even if you're So even if your home wasn't fully destroyed by this fire, you're returning to an area of just toxic debris. So it's not safe for you to come home either at this point and spend much time there. You're talking about lead pipes, fireproofing material, elements of older homes that have released dangerous poisons that, when burned, pose long-term health risks. It's something we talked about related to all those chemicals in that spill in East Palestine, Ohio, in Lahaina, and the Maui fires there. For all the destruction and talk of the issues related to the hurricanes, fire damage, that much more difficult to begin the rebuilding effort after the fires, that much more difficult to clean up afterwards and begin the rebuilding effort afterwards. You have the smoke remains and other issues that relate to indoor air quality that are also going to continue to impact, again, the homes that weren't burnt down or homes that are nearby. Scientists know the debris and ash are toxic, but at the same time, residents are eager to return to their properties. But when people return home, they recommend wearing long sleeves, goggles, gloves, masks in your own home, even if undamaged by the fire, related to all these toxic particles that are now in the area. Add to that now a concern about mudslides. You already saw pictures, you might have seen pictures in the past 24 hours. One house that survived the fire, destroyed by a landslide, triggered by actually all the water that the firefighters have been using to try to douse the flames, now leading to sort of mini mudslides. And it's going to be worse when eventually they get rain in Southern California. Again, not in the forecast for a while, sadly, but when rain comes, given all the dry land, the ash, you're going to see mudslide concerns now in Southern California. Even as you're seeing a break in the flames, they're making progress here. Still a lot of major challenges ahead.
Some big news in the space race from the New York Times on Thursday morning when most people in the United States were sleeping. Jeff Bezos' space company sent its first rocket into orbit. It was a 320-foot tall rocket named New Glenn. It took off from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida. The launch was a major success for Blue Origin, Bezos' rocket company, and it should quiet critics who say that the company has been too slow compared with Elon Musk's SpaceX, which has dominated the global spaceflight industry in recent years.
So this is a big deal for Bezos, who's been sort of behind here in the space race, behind Musk especially, given all the success Elon Musk company, SpaceX, has had. And so this could be a credible competitor for Bezos in an attempt to win some launch contracts from NASA, from the Department of Defense. We're going to be launching tens of thousands of more satellites in the coming years. They're actually talking about just too much in the way. Basically, we're going to be blocking most of Earth with just satellites revolving around it in the coming years. That's one of the stories to be watching. But you have this competition among a few companies. Boeing is one, SpaceX is two, Blue Origin here, Amazon is three, all competing for various contracts, as NASA basically is using a bunch of these private companies to do its business, to do parts of its business moving forward. But interestingly, you have two of the richest men in the world cheering each other on here. Elon Musk writing on X after Jeff Bezos' successful launch: "Congratulations on reaching orbit on the first attempt." Bezos' response to Musk: "Thank you. Maybe a preview of things to come." The two of them, among several billionaires who will be on stage at the inauguration on Monday. Basically, a who's who of tech, Jill. You'll have Tim Cook, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, also the CEO of TikTok, all there on stage within a couple feet of Donald Trump on Monday. That'll be one of the interesting stories that we'll be watching. Notably, all of them have donated $1 million or more to the Trump inauguration, hence the good seating.
In other space news, a SpaceX Starship prototype failed in space minutes after launching from Texas. It is a setback for Elon Musk's speedy rocket development efforts in a mission that was expected to debut a key satellite deployment demonstration.
Yes, it was a tale of two launches on Thursday there. SpaceX Starship system launched in the afternoon in the company's seventh test mission. Mission Control in Texas lost contact with the Starship about 8 minutes into flight after it had separated in space from its first booster. It was due to make a splashdown in the Indian Ocean. Instead, via social media, we started to see photos and videos of what appeared to be fireballs near the Caribbean. Starship sort of coming down in pieces there. Again, no humans aboard that flight, so no concern there. But the FAA did issue a warning to pilots about dangerous debris falling from the rocket Starship. Multiple flights that were above the Caribbean on Thursday afternoon were actually diverted or appeared to be turning around. That included cargo planes for JetBlue, as well as Spirit and FedEx, according to FlightAware. At the same time, I will say Musk also had a success again yesterday, because while that rocket fell apart, the booster was able to return to Earth, and you might have seen that incredible landing back on the booster pad where they have those chopsticks that caught it. Well, that was successful again on Thursday. So a win for Musk, a slight setback for Musk, but nonetheless, developments in the right direction there, both for Bezos and Musk. I imagine they'll be talking about it on stage on Monday. I imagine that'll be one of the subjects that they might be chatting about as they wait for the inauguration to start on Monday. So you lost your rocket.
I didn't.
I didn't. And by the way, what took you so long? I've launched 5 successful rockets in the time it took you to even launch one.
Or they might just talk about how cold they are.
Or, hey, saw that you lost about $50 billion of your net worth. How does it feel to be about $100 billion poorer than I am?
We're going to need a lip reader for sure. You're going to be there, I know, Moshe, but
not close enough to lip read.
Yes, I'll let you know if I can.
I haven't donated enough money or any money to get to that level.
Sticking with space news from NewJersey.com, President-elect Trump says he's going to soon share more information about these scores of reported drone sightings in the skies above New Jersey and other parts of the Northeast. He vowed last week to release a report on the drones shortly after taking office Monday. He told a gathering of Republican governors in Mar-a-Lago, quote, "I'm going to give you a report on drones about one day into the administration because I think it is ridiculous that they are not telling you about what's going on with the drones." He also told them the Biden administration knows more than has been released, saying they don't want to talk about it and nobody knows why. I hope it's not an enemy, but we're going to find out on the 21st. Moshe, that would lead us to believe that Trump may not actually know what's going on himself, at least not yet.
It's not clear, Jill. He has been getting the same intelligence briefings as Biden's been getting since he was elected to be president, since he's become president-elect here. So unclear what he knows or what he doesn't or what he says he knows. He's made multiple recent remarks saying he's going to tell us what's really going on here. It is one of the many things I'm looking forward to watching for next week. Make sure to keep me honest on that, Jill. We're going to be going in a million different directions next week with all the news set to come in, but I don't want to miss the truth behind the drone sightings. We still haven't gotten firm word from the FBI or any federal or state authorities as to what exactly was going on there. There have been fewer reports of drone sightings in recent weeks in New Jersey, as many people were told that many of the things they thought were drones were actually just planes, helicopters, civilian drones that had explained backgrounds. But nonetheless, the truth behind the drones coming to you in the Trump administration.
Staying with politics, we have some more details on who will be filling 2 Republican Senate seats in Ohio and Florida, with J.D. Vance's Ohio seat now open as he moves to vice president. Trump has encouraged biotech entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy to consider filling Ohio's vacant Senate seat should the post be offered to him. Ramaswamy publicly withdrew his name from consideration for the post in November after Trump chose him to lead the Department of Government Efficiency panel, aka DOGE, along with billionaire exec Elon Musk. But the Ohio native has reemerged in recent days as one of the leading contenders for the Senate seat, and he is in advanced discussions with GOP leaders about the position.
So Vance officially resigned from his seat on Friday, as he needs to now, as he is ready to take the oath of office on Monday as vice president. Under Ohio law, the governor there, Mike DeWine, will appoint a replacement who will be there until 2026. Then there needs to be a special election, so that person will have to run again. And so we'll see who DeWine chooses here. Ramaswamy, by the way, has had plans to run for governor of Ohio, as DeWine will be limited out in 2026. So his DOGE plan to help run DOGE was going to take him until that point in 26. Unclear if he wants to be a senator instead here, or he was into the DOGE gig, or how the whole Ramaswamy, Musk, bro, DOGE gig was going to work out, how they were all going to share power there. Now, it is interesting as it comes after some of the controversy in recent weeks. We told you about in regards to the in regards to the stances on foreign visas for workers. This was a situation on social media over the holidays where Elon Musk and Ramaswamy were defending H-1B visas for basically foreign workers with unique skills to come to America. Led to a whole fight on social media. Ramaswamy basically engaging in battle on Twitter, saying that Americans aren't doing a good enough job of raising a next generation of engineers, that we elevate the varsity quarterback over the math club president, and that's why you need Indian workers with H-1B visas to ensure that we stay number one in the AI race. It rubbed a number of people in the party the wrong way, so unclear whether Trump sort of is pushing, nudging Ramaswamy away here, as a number of people in MAGA world were not happy with how Ramaswamy engaged in that fight. Nonetheless, we'll watch what happens there with that Senate seat. In Florida, by the way, another Senate seat that is open, Marco Rubio, who's had a Senate seat there for a while, is set to be confirmed as Secretary of State. So there, the governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, has chosen the state attorney general. Her name is Ashley Moody, to replace Rubio as the next senator from Florida, at least for the next 2 years, until a special election is held there in 2026. What's interesting there, Jill, is we could see a little switcheroo. Moody is an ally of DeSantis. DeSantis will be done with his 2 terms and limited out in 26. People are wondering, what is Ron DeSantis going to do next? Well, he wants to run for Senate. Well, what did Ashley Moody actually want to do in 2026? She wants to run for governor. So will there be a little switcheroo where he puts an ally in there to be the senator from Florida for 2 years, allowing DeSantis now run for senator in 2 years, when Moody then decides to switch and run for governor in 2026? Anyway, something I know Floridians will be closely watching.
And finally, from ESPN, the NCAA has approved a new pay structure for women's basketball teams participating in the NCAA tournament starting in 2025, similar to the longstanding system for men's teams. So women's teams will receive what's called performance units that translate to financial rewards for their conferences based on their tournament performance. Each performance unit for women will initially be valued at around $113,000, with a total of $15 million distributed in 2025, growing to $25 million by 2028. And Moshe comes after more people watched the women's NCAA tournament last year than the men's.
Yeah, that's a big deal. And that's one of the reasons they got money, right? Because the networks pay for the rights to air the games. And then that also, those networks bring in advertising dollars. And so they're able to pay the leagues more there. So now you see what we've seen on the men's side for a while coming to the women's side, as now more Americans are watching those games. Nonetheless, just for comparison's sake, you talked about each performance unit valued at $113,000 for the women. Right now on the men's side, it's $2 million. The $15 million distributed in 2025. The men's pool will be 10 times that, $226 million, just for the sake of comparison here. But again, that speaks to just how much money the men's side has been bringing in versus the women's side. So you see slowly but surely here the interest and the ratings, and this is why viewership matters. This is why you, if you're a fan of these things and you want to ensure that women are being paid the same way that men are being paid on the sports side, you're buying of merchandise, you attending the games, you watching the games matters here.
Okay, it is Friday. Cheers to the freaking weekend. Time for what we are watching, reading, and eating. So Moshe, kick it off. What are you watching?
So, Jill, this is streaming now on Hulu. It's a movie called A Real Pain. I actually thought of you when I read the description here, and I was like, I gotta watch
pain?
This. Oh, no. Well, different. Sometimes. But wait for the description of the film. So this is Jesse Eisenberg's film, as both he's an actor in it, but he's also the writer and director. He stars along Kieran Culkin, a favorite of mine, and it centers on two Jewish American cousins, so played by Eisenberg and Culkin. They embark on a tour of Poland to honor their late grandmother, who fled Europe to America to escape World War II. They meet up with a tour group, explore their heritage in Poland, try to reconcile with their personal grievances, generational trauma. Jill, are you ready to switch what you're watching this weekend? Because I feel like based on half the things you watch, listen to, and read, this is sounds like up your alley.
Holocaust, check. World War II, check. Yeah. Yeah, Moshe, I might get through it before you do, actually.
Yeah, she's checking for her Hulu password, making sure her account is updated now, or her friends have one that they can share with her. So Jill, besides also now watching that, what were you planning on watching this weekend?
Okay, so I am planning to watch the college football national championship game. It is between Ohio State and Notre Dame. It's the first of the 12-team college football playoff era. And as if we don't have enough going on Monday, it's 7:30 p.m. in Atlanta.
So it's technically the last edge of this holiday weekend here in the U.S., Monday night.
Yeah, it counts, right?
Yeah, it counts.
Okay, Moshe, what are you reading?
So a Derek Thompson piece. I'm a fan of Derek Thompson's writing over there at theatlantic.com. He has a piece looking at all the studies on drinking and whether it's bad for you. He took a look at it after that Surgeon General cancer scare recently. Looks at all the data and makes a decision. And he makes a call based on all the data on whether it's still okay to have 2 drinks a day. I'll link to it in the show notes.
And you haven't read it yet, so you don't know the answer?
I think I know where he's going with it, but I haven't finished. I haven't gotten to the end yet.
I feel like he's trying to do kind of what Emily Oster did with pregnancy, but for this topic, which is looking at actually the data and what it says versus using scaremongering.
And he does that a lot. He actually has it's one of the podcasts I like to listen to over on The Ringer. It's Plain English with Derek Thompson. He tends to do this with a lot of topics where he's like, let's take the fear out of it, let's take the politics out of it, and let's just look at the facts. Jill, what are you going to read this weekend?
Okay, so I have been reading the Daily Dad newsletter from Ryan Holiday. He wrote the Daily Stoic. So Moshe, I know you have interviewed him on the Interview podcast.
Yes, both Ryan and his wife are Bone News community members. In fact, he learned about us from his wife.
Okay, so his newsletter, it's one piece of parenting advice every day, and it's kind of like a little nugget of wisdom. And I find that during what could be kind of like the day-to-day grind of parenting, it is a great reminder to look at the big picture and really appreciate the joy of being a parent. And it's very quick also, so you can kind of like get through the read in less than 2 minutes.
All right, and finally, what we're eating this weekend. Jill, let's start with you.
Dried mangoes. My family, especially my kids, have been going through like bags and bags of this. I've been buying the Solely brand, Solely, but I don't discriminate as long as the only ingredient is mango and it has nothing else in it.
Love a good dried mango, though, Jill. I have to, it's hard to stop. You could finish a whole bag, then you get a bellyache, then you might emit some toxins.
Speak for yourself, Moshe.
Okay, good for you and your system.
You know what? I'm just so happy that my kids eat that versus like candy because it's actually, although some dentists say it really can rot your teeth, but I figure these are their baby teeth anyway.
What doesn't?
Moshe, what are you eating?
Jill, it's less what I'm eating and more what I'm seasoning with these days, or what we're seasoning with in this household, as admittedly Alex is the cook in the household. There's a company called New York Shook, SHUK, founded by friends of ours based out of Brooklyn, and they began by doing like cooking lessons. I remember saw that they were doing a cooking lesson into how to make homemade couscous years ago that I went to, I think like 7 or 8 years ago. Over time, they've grown their business. They now have a line of spices and other incredible cooking-related items in a whole bunch of grocery stores across America. Again, the company is NY Shook, SHUK. And we have their latest spice box. Their holiday spice box includes like a shawarma spice, a za'atar spice, a ras al hanout spice. Ras al hanout is a North African spice, a mix of spices, really. They have one, Hawaiish. Hawaiish is a Yemenite spice. Trying to let you into all the various Middle Eastern, North African spices and spice combos there are. Hawaiish is like a turmeric, cumin combo, like a masala. But what's cool is they've actually developed over at New York Shook a coffee Hawaiish. And so this is like the Middle Eastern version of pumpkin spice. And so Alex and I have been putting into our AM coffee. We very much have enjoyed it. So definitely check them out over at nyshook.com. That's nyshook.com. They have the spices. They have harissa. They have barbecue spices, marinades, a whole bunch of recipes. So check them out.
I'm looking at their website. I feel like you just use one of their. I feel like all you have to do is just use one of their sauces or marinades or one of their seasonings, and you're a good cook. Like, I feel like this is going to be helpful for me.
Yeah, because that's the thing, especially, having grown up around Middle Eastern food. My father's from Morocco. There's no food that there's no recipe that had like less than 12 spices in it. Right. And if you ask anyone in the family, like for the recipe, there's also no recipes. It's all memorized and it's all by feel. A little bit of this, a little bit of that, a side of that, a side of this. Nothing was ever written down. It's all just the feel and touch of the spices. And I think what they've done incredibly at New York Shook is that they have created these combos, right? When we talk about like Ras Al Hanout and we talk about Hawaii's, you're talking about like multiple spices in one. They create these spice mixes. And so you put it in there and you're like, oh my God, this is a burst of flavor that, can only be achieved by 10 spices because there's 10 spices in there. So they do the hard work for you.
Okay, good for somebody like me who really wouldn't know where to start with a recipe like that.
Just go get the chicken breast and then dump one of their spices on it and you're good to go.
All right, everyone. Thank you for listening to the Mo News Podcast. If you like what you hear, share this with your friends. It will help us grow. Follow us and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And please review us in the App Store.
Have a great weekend, everyone. Stay warm. See you on Inauguration Day.
Bye, everyone.